السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. على الرغم من العقبات الهائلة التي تواجه مكونات المنطقة العربية إثر الإرهاب والمخاطر والنزوح، فإن بارقات الأمل ما فتئت تهتف بالعودة والصمود في أرض الوطن. مع النائب الأيرلندي المستقل ميك والاس نتحدث من الداخل عن هذه الأزمة التي طال تجاهلها في الغرب. معكم زينب صفار، تابعونا. لعل الصورة التي انتشرت منذ عامين عن صف طويل من الأقباط المسيحيين في بزاتهم البرتقالية على غرار تلك التي يرتديها معتقلو غوانتانامو وإرغامهم على الركوع وانتظار تنفيذ حكم الإعدام بحقهم لمجرد أنهم ينتمون إلى الديانة المسيحية ولرفضهم التخلي عن معتقداتهم الدينية هي صورة منفكت تطارد أذهاننا برسائلها وبشاعتها ووحشيتها. ويرى المراقبون أنه إن دلت هذه المشهدية على شيء فإنها ترمز إلى مصير المسيحيين في المنطقة العربية، حيث إن حملة الاضطهادات المروعة ستفضي إلى التهديد الصارخ والقضاء على وجود المكون المسيحي في العراق ومصر وسوريا وفلسطين المحتلة. ولتوضيح ذلك نشرت أنجليكو بريس للتو كتاب الاضطهاد والإبادة الجماعية للمسيحيين في الشرق الأوسط، المنع والحظر والملاحقة القضائية، وهو يجمع عشرات المقالات العلمية التي يكتبها خبراء في هذا الشأن وتغطي كل جانب من جوانب هذه المأساة المستمرة. وتوثق الفصول الأولى تدمير داعش المستهدفة والجامعة للمجتمعات المسيحية في المشرق، هذا إضافة إلى فصل يفند إطلاق التهم جزافا مثل تهمة الإسلاموفوبيا ضد أي شخص يتحدث بصراحة عن الإسلام الراديكالي المتطرف، حيث يستشهد جيفري ستريكلاند بالإعلانات الصريحة والواضحة والمعلنة على شبكات التواصل الاجتماعي والمواقع التابعة لداعش التي تؤيد صراحة الإبادة الجماعية للمسيحيين. ميك والاس النائب الأيرلندي المستقل عن تحالف مستقلون من أجل التغيير يحدثنا عن أبرز أنشطته وزياراته سوريا والمبيت ليلة في معلولا المحررة ودلالات ذلك، وما هي التداعيات التي سيواجهها الشرق الأوسط جراء هجرة المسيحيين منه، وإذا عانت المسيحية مشاكل هنا فهل ستعاني مشكلة في أوروبا؟ Independent TD Mick Wallace, member of the Irish Parliament. Welcome to Min al-Dakhil from the inside, sir.
Thank you.
Always welcome, sir. Well, Mick, because you were such a rebel, because you were prepared to stick the finger up at the authorities, you've got elected. And also you've campaigned against austerity and against corruption issues. And in 2014 also you were arrested at the Shannon Airport while trying to inspect a military aircraft, and was accused of trying to put the Irish people at risk of terrorism by repeatedly linking Shannon Airport to US-led wars. How did you respond to such an accusation?
I mean, if US military planes land in Shannon on their way to drop bombs on people in the Middle East region, then that's something that Ireland should try to stop. It shouldn't be happening. Our government pretend to be neutral, but in actual fact they are complicit in the destruction of this region and the role that America has played in it. America has played many roles in the destruction of the Middle East region. Some recent research actually carried out by a group called Physicians Against Nuclear Arms in America claimed that close to 2.1 million people, citizens not involved in the war in Iraq or Afghanistan, have been killed by American forces in the last 16 years. I mean, that's an incredible thing. And to think that Ireland facilitates that by allowing Shannon Airport, a civilian airport, to be used as a US military base on the way to the Middle East is horrific. And the majority of Irish people don't agree with that. The majority of Irish people are very fond of the idea of neutrality. And we don't want to be taking sides in these crazy wars. But unfortunately, sadly, too many members of our government feel that, oh, we don't want to upset American business interests in Ireland. We don't want to be upsetting the European Union because, unfortunately, the European Union also behaves under the pressure of the Americans.
So Shannon was acting like an air bridge between the Americans and whoever they were transmitting the weapons and the arms for, like also the fighting groups in Syria, for example.
Yeah, I mean, most of you'll find the fighting groups in Syria, you will find, if you want to check to see where their guns were made, you'll find that the vast majority of them were made in America. But most of them obviously come through Saudi Arabia. But I mean, whether it's the British or the Americans or the French, they would sell anything to anybody in order to make money. And obviously the Saudis have been instrumental in arming and financing and funding the military groups that arrived in Syria in order to destabilize Syria. But I mean, going back to the point, the big problem in Ireland is there's two issues. We have military US American planes, and it's illegal for a military plane from another country to land in Ireland with arms. But of course, there's maybe an average of more than 2 per day. There's over 700 per year. So the idea that they're landing with nothing in the cargo area and no guns is just ridiculous. It costs $250,000 to fly a plane from America to the Middle East and back.
Yeah.
So the notion that they would go empty is just crazy. Sometimes there's troops on board, sometimes there's not.
Rendition flights
But on top of that, you have, in order to get around the law about military planes, the Americans are hiring private planes, what were originally civilian, but they are changed in order to take. They load them with arms and all kinds
as a camouflage for whatever.
Well, no, in actual fact, they admit what's on them. They have to declare what's on them, and our government are giving them a permit to bring arms and munitions through Shannon on civilian planes. It's illegal on the military plane, but it can be legal if you get a permit on a civilian plane. And sadly, our government are giving them permits to bring arms legally on the civilian planes. And they are ignoring the fact that they are also bringing a huge amount of arms and explosives on the military planes totally against international law.
So they are accomplices also in whatever is taking place.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the trouble, there's been incredible destruction in the last 16 years in the Middle East region, ever since the attack on Afghanistan in 2001, followed by the attack in Iraq in 2003. And so many million people's lives have been destroyed. You have so many people killed. So many people have been made refugees.
Exactly.
So many people have been displaced within their own country. And sadly, if the Americans had not played a part in it, the story would be very different. It would not have happened. Exactly. Now, we know of the role that Israel plays within this.
But in this sense also, Mick, you've attacked to a certain extent after the Paris November attacks in 2015. You attacked France, and you said that in one of your tweets, which made a storm on the social media. You said that, so terrible for the victims, I'm quoting you, but when is France going to stop its role in the militarization of the planet? What was your message through such a tweet? I
mean, listen, and my niece was 500 meters away from some of the attacks in Paris. She was living in Paris. And And she was the first person to text me and tell me that I agree with your tweet, that in actual fact, I mean, if people are full of hatred, and that's very sad, and listen, I disagree with all violence. I don't believe anyone has the right to take the life of another person. I disagree 100% with anybody killing anybody else. And if people come to Paris and kill innocent civilians in the street, I disagree completely with that. But at the same time, I'm trying to explain that in actual fact, I mean, these people didn't fall out of the sky. And unfortunately, I would say, if you are prepared to shoot into a restaurant and kill people who have nothing to do with they have never caused you pain, then I would argue that you would not be mentally well to do that. And that's a different area. But the destruction in the Middle East, the treatment of prisoners in Iraq, ISIS grew out of that. ISIS did not grow out of nowhere.
Exactly.
It grew out of the terrorism of the US state. Now people talk about terrorism as if only those who are not in government can be terrorists. Most of the terrorism in the world is created by states. And obviously...
And they are state-sponsored.
Yeah, but not just state-sponsored, but I mean, the Americans drop more bombs than everybody else in the world put together. But the Americans, and because of their relationship with Israel, Israel has a vested interest in destabilizing the regions around it, and they have caused incredible hardship and destruction and slaughter of innocent people in this region for no good reason. No good reason. And they have created what we now call terrorist organizations who wreak havoc on innocent people in the Western Europe. But let's remember, of all the terrorist attacks in 2016, last year, of all the terrorist attacks in 2016, over 90% of the people who died were Muslim. Over 90% in the world. Over 90% were Muslim.
Exactly.
Now, we don't, if a bomb goes off in Baghdad, people don't stand up and say a prayer in a parliament in Western Europe. But if people are killed in Western Europe, yes, we take notice. But we are able to turn
These double
a blind
standards.
eye. There is a terrible, I mean, it's terrible when people die in Western Europe.
It's
But it's
terrible
also
when people
terrible to
die
die anywhere.
Yeah.
And that has to be recognized. The individual, the human being, we are all the same. We are different, but at the same time we are equal.
Exactly.
And we must, the most simple individual that's killed by a bomb dropped in Raqqa or Aleppo or anywhere else has the same value as the person who is sitting in a restaurant in Paris.
Right.
And that needs to be understood.
Exactly. Mick, allow us to stop now for a short break, and then after the break we're going to talk a bit more in details about the prospects of Christianity surviving in this part of the world. We are today in معلولا. You're going to spend the night in معلولا, and we need to talk about this a bit after the break. إذا فاصل قصير ونعود. لا تذهبوا بعيدا.
مدينة معلولا السورية من بين الأماكن التي يتظاهر الغرب باهتمامه بها، بيد أنه لم يفعل شيئا لمساعدة المدينة وأهلها من تعرضهم للنهب والترهيب. ميك والاس النائب الأيرلندي المستقل ماذا يقول عن زيارته معلولا ومبيته في أحد منازلها؟
Well, I mean, it's the reason I came here is I want to see what Syria is like, and I wanted to see what the people are like. And it's been a very positive experience. We have been in Damascus all the time till now, and I was really impressed with the city. I was impressed with the spirit of the people. There was mortar bombs going off in the background, but life was going on, and I've never been in Syria in my life before, and I liked the city very much. Obviously, there's not many people living here now because of the trouble they had here,
Yes.
so it's not alive like Damascus. I can see a lot of the...
But hopefully life will come back.
I'm sure
again
it
to the
will.
city.
I'm sure they will rebuild the place.
Exactly.
I realise that even if the war were to end next week...
Is Ireland going to help one way or another in the reconstruction of Syria? What are the prospects of getting into this process?
The chances of Ireland making a serious contribution to the reconstruction of Syria are probably slim. I would be, I'm sure, I would imagine that the Irish government would be prepared to give humanitarian aid in certain areas, but for the actual reconstruction, I'd be very surprised if they play a strong role. To be honest, the Irish government can say that we have incredible problems at home. We have a lot of homeless people. We have huge levels of poverty. In Ireland today, 19% of the people are at risk of poverty. We have a housing crisis that we never had in the history of the state before. So we have incredible challenges of our own, different to yours. I mean, just how things are going to work out in Syria, I don't know, and I think there's a lot of problems still remaining.
Mick, in this sense, don't you think that the West has questions to answer as Syria lies in ruins and rubbles, and the country is dismembered, and the families are, you know, scattered and displaced?
Yes, well, I mean, if you check our speeches in the Parliament, you will see that that we are holding our government responsible. We are complicit in the destruction of places like Syria. We have helped. We have helped the Americans to arm the Saudis. We've helped the Americans to arm the Israelis, and so we have helped the people who have created unbelievable havoc here, caused unbelievable destruction. We acknowledge that our government carries responsibility in that area, and we are not afraid to say so.
Now, allow me to take you back to the issue of Christianity. You know that this is the birthplace of Christianity, this part of the world. I know that, as you said, that you are a non-believer, but also the issue of the Christians being a major and a fundamental component of this part of the world. The prospect of Christianity surviving in its birthplace in the Middle East appear now as grim as they have at any time in the last 2 millennia. Consequently, many Christians are leaving, or they have left already and they are just leaving their homes. What are the implications of the Christian flight for the Middle East, Mick?
I would expect, I mean, people want to believe in something. They like, religion is a comfort to them. It gives them a sense of security. Many people feel insecure without it. So, if you're asking me, is Christianity going to survive in this region? Of course it will. Will the Muslim faith...
How will it survive if most of the Christians are leaving?
Well, they won't all leave, right? And even if most of them leave, it will still survive. You don't need numbers to survive. And in actual fact, the more difficult things are sometimes, the more pressures put on an organization. And I mean, the Muslim people know it more than anybody. When you are challenged by mighty, powerful forces and efforts are made to diminish you, you become stronger. You might become lower in numbers, but you become stronger in spirit. And people, if people want to preserve something that they believe in, people do it. The capacity of the human being is immeasurable, and the human spirit is indefatigable. You cannot beat the human spirit.
Exactly.
And you can create all the destruction you like, and the groups that can come here and do terrible things. The Saudis can try and promote their Wahhabism, and the Israelis can continue to talk about everything as if they are the persecutors while they persecute everyone around them. The Americans pretend that they are spreading democracy when they are destroying so much of the world. But you know what? The human spirit will always win.
Will dominate, yes. Hungarian Prime Minister Orbán warned recently that the greatest danger threatening us today is the different or the indifferent silence of the European elite who are renouncing their Christian roots, despite the fact that the fate of Middle Eastern Christians should wake Europe up to the fact that no matter how unbelievable it may still seem, what happened there could also happen to us. He's talking about also whatever happened here to the Christians in this part of the world is going to also backfire at the Christians in Europe, particularly after, you know, the attacks that were taking place in different European capitals.
Listen, the European has to wake up. We have to stop putting big business interest before the interest of the ordinary people. We must start treating people with humanity. We must treat everybody, 100% of the people, with respect. And the Europeans have to wake up to that. Europeans at the moment are playing a very poor role, for example, with the migrant crisis, with the refugees. Right now, we are spending crazy money to prevent them from coming in, instead of helping them to come in and help them to establish a new life if that's what they want. Instead, we're putting up walls. We have an operation called Operation Sophia now in the Mediterranean. Instead of rescuing people now and bringing them to mainland Europe, we are taking them from the boats and bringing them back to Libya, where they may be killed, because Libya has been destroyed by Western powers as well, and now it's a place of anarchy and terrible things are happening there.
One last question, if I may make, on the issue of the Irish troops here in Syria and the Golan. What do you say, for example? Because they were...
both myself and Claire Daly would have campaigned a lot in the Irish Parliament on that. We think it's crazy that the Irish troops are excellent peacekeeping troops. We should be in a place where we can keep peace. Instead, we are in the Golan Heights. It belongs to Syria. We are actually helping the Israeli occupation of it, and now we see the Israelis starting to drill for oil in Golan Heights. It is crazy. We are like a buffer protecting Israel's illegal occupation of the Golan Heights, and we should stop it, and we should bring our troops home and bring them to a place where they can do good work.
Right Independent TD Mick Wallace, member of the Irish Parliament, many thanks indeed for joining us from معلولا.
No problem, thank you, my pleasure.
It was our pleasure, sir. إذا لقاء جديد في الأسبوع المقبل مع ضيف جديد وقضية جديدة ودائما من الداخل. للمزيد من التواصل بريدنا theinsight@almayadeen.net وصفحتنا على الفيسبوك من الداخل. من كل فريق عمل من الداخل من كل الميادين من معلولة. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.